Title: Echoes of the Past. Chapter 1. The Haunting Chill. As I huddled beneath the weighty quilt my grandmother had made for me, the biting chill of winter seeped through the crumbling walls of my home. It was a modest Victorian house, perched on the outskirts of Aurora, an unassuming Midwestern town, its Gothic silhouette resembling a fractured tooth against the stormy, leaden sky. The wind howled like a banshee, and with every gust, the echo of whispers floated through the air, slithering through the cracks in the wood. I have always been much of a recluse, feeling more at home amidst dusty tomes than in the company of others. Perhaps it was the years of isolation that shaped my peculiarities. My fondness for the antique, a passion that some might label bizarre, became my solace in a world fraught with the mundane. So, you can imagine my thrill when I stumbled upon the estate sale of a long-abandoned manor, the McAllister residence. It was said that the family had met with a gruesome demise, their lives claimed by something unspeakable. With unsteady hands, I had ventured forth into the biting cold, my inclination for oddities overpowering any lingering caution. The manor stood like a specter amidst a field of frostbitten weeds, its once opulent facade marred by decay and neglect. I shivered as I pushed through the creaking door, a premonition tugging at the edges of my mind as I stepped into the darkness within. Chapter 2: Curiosities in the Shadows. The inside was a labyrinth of shadows and decay. Dust motes danced in the slivers of light that pierced through the broken window panes, casting eerie shapes across the hardwood floors, which groaned under my weight. I wandered through rooms lost in time, each brimming with remnants of a past life. A moth-eaten armchair, gilded frames concealing forgotten faces, and within one room, a grand piano, its keys yellowed and silent. It was in a dim corner, cloaked beneath a tattered velvet cloth, that I found it. An ornate mirror, its silvered surface marred by age yet still bearing an allure I couldn't quite resist. Carved into its frame were grotesque figures entangled in vines, twisted, naked forms as if wrenched from a nightmare. Idly, I brushed my fingers over the cool glass. A feeling pierced through me, an electric anticipation laced with dread, but I bought it anyway. The moment I transported the mirror into my home, I noticed changes. At first, they were subtle. I found fleeting shadows in the corners of my eye, strange flickers of movement as I passed. The townsfolk whispered. I heard their words waft through the winter air like the smoke from a dying fire. They spoke of madness, of entities lurking beyond the veil. Chapter 3. The Unraveling. Days blurred into nights, and I became ensnared in the mirror's haunting embrace. The longer it resided in my home, the sharper the whispers became, deformed syllables that coiled around my mind. I could scarcely sleep, tormented by visions of figures clawing through the glass, their bony fingers stretching toward me, begging, pleading. I began to withdraw further into myself, avoiding neighbors and visitors who knocked gently on my door, their muffled faces bearing concern I could no longer stand. One evening, while the storm raged outside, I found myself staring deep into the glass. I was drawn to the way it warped light and shadow, distorting my reflection until I barely recognized myself. That's when I saw it. A flicker of movement, something shifting behind me in the reflection. My heart raced as I turned, yet there was only the empty space of my living room. Yet the mirror remained, a portal to something other. With each passing day, it had become clear. The mirror had begun to claim me, feeding off my isolation. My sanity unraveled like threads of an unwoven tapestry. I began to hear my friends' names whispered through the dark. Harold, Anna, Jonah. Their faces haunted me, twisted and forlorn, begging me to heed them, to warn them of the fate they would inevitably face. Chapter 4. The Breaking Point. Then the happenings took a sinister turn. My friends began to suffer inexplicable misfortunes. Harold lost his job, his home burning to the ground in one tragic night. Anna screamed about shadows stalking her, an eerie reflection of the reality I was trying to escape. Jonah, who once spun tales of courage, was found in the depths of a frozen lake, his eyes wide with unimaginable fear. It was as if the mirror had cast its pall over my life, spreading a creeping darkness that consumed everything I cared for. I felt the weight of each loss, each tragedy drawing the very breath from my lungs until I could barely function. The truth was evident. The antique I had brought into my home was a curse, a conduit of despair unleashed upon anyone who had the misfortune to cross my path. Chapter 5. Facing the Darkness. In a desperate attempt to reclaim my sanity and protect what little remained of my world, I sought the source of the mirror's curse. I immersed myself in research, poring over ancient texts and local history, discovering that the McAllister family had dabbled in the occult. The very mirror I now feared was said to ensnare the souls of those who gazed into it, feeding on their despair. Determined to confront my failed curiosity, I planned the unthinkable. On the night of the bitterest blizzard, when howling winds threatened to swallow me whole, I resolved to destroy it. I carried the mirror into the backyard, shivering from the cold. With trembling hands, I raised a heavy stone, and as I prepared to bring it down, the air thickened, a palpable dread that seemed to whisper my name through gritted teeth. As the stone shattered the glass, darkness spilled forth like smoke, a gust that knocked me breathless. I staggered back, heart racing as I screamed against the emptiness that encroached. The cold night air crackled with an otherworldly presence, as if all the souls trapped within had found a way to vent their misery. Epilogue. Broken reflections. And so, I stand before you, narrating the fragments of my tale, a warning etched in the deep recesses of my mind. The mirror shattered, but the memories linger like dust upon aged tomes. The lives it ruined, the shadows I can still feel creeping into the corners of each day. What remains are echoes of the past. A deranged old man in a decaying Victorian house, peering into the abyss, haunted by the faces of all who lost their way in the maze of my reflection. Winter forever wraps its frosty tendrils around my weary heart, a reminder that some curiosities are best left undisturbed, the Gothic whispers of ruin left to echo in the rearview of my haunted existence.